Hi, my name is Phil Fraser, and I'm going to talk to you about how to prepare to sell your business before it's even for sale. Now, you might ask, why am I qualified to do this talk? Well, I set up a business back in 2000. 18 years later, in 2018, we sold the business, but we weren't actually for sale. So what you'll hear is, over the next half an hour or so, is 12 key points based particularly on some of the errors that I made when I sold my business. The first thing to bear in mind, there's probably four things to bear in mind when you prepare to sell your business. The first is you want to make it easy for somebody to buy, almost like buying a business in a box, so that they can take it from you, plug it into their existing business, and off they go. The second thing is you want to make it as risk-free as possible for the potential purchaser. Obviously, in theory, they're going to give you a pot of money. You're going to give them the keys. They want that to be as risk-free as possible. And then a couple of things we'll talk about today should make it much easier when you come to doing due diligence, or when the client or purchaser comes to doing due diligence, because the more things you have in place in preparation for that, the easier it becomes, the less of a pain it becomes, and the more likely you'll get to a sale. And the fourth thing really is, a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is actually good business habits. So getting into those good business habits as early as possible, make it as easy as possible for you to sell your business when you eventually come around to selling it. So let's go. The first point I want to cover is you need to ensure you get to a point where the company runs without the owner. You as the owner, you need to aim to make yourself redundant. You have to get to a position where every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Sunday, if you work over the weekends, the business is running without you. Ideally, what a purchaser wants to do is to buy the business, take you out of it, and the business continue running without you there. Now, have a think about it. When you run your business, if you weren't there, would it continue to run? And also, conversely, from your point of view, when you come to sell your business, you want to give them the keys, you walk away with the cash, and have nothing more to do with it. The nearer you get to that point where you're redundant from the business, the more likely you have of selling the business as easy as possible. And the best way to do that is to check through what you call the holiday test. Now, can you go on holiday for a week, maybe 2 weeks, turn off your phone, turn off the laptop, and does the company continue running? Conversely, if you take your laptop on holiday, take your phone on holiday, you're sat by the pool, you're sat by the beach, and you're on there all the time, you probably haven't got a business that's ready for sale yet. So, point number one, this is probably the most important point to bear in mind. You need to get to a point where the company runs without you as the owner. Number two, and this is tied into what I've just said, you need to get a management team in place. The purchaser will expect, or most purchasers will expect, to see an established management team in there running the business. That'll be a team who have the experience to run the business, the know-how to run the business, and the authority to run the business. Ideally, without you. Excuse me. Now, that management team doesn't need to be shareholders, it doesn't need to be board directors, it just needs to be a team of people, or it might be one person who knows how to run the business. Now, that might be somebody who's in charge of marketing. You might need somebody in charge of sales, operations, finance, maybe HR, customer support. All of this contributes to a business that runs without you and has the responsibility of a management team that a new purchaser can take over. Now, from your point of view as a business owner, that's going to need some really good delegation from you, some training, and probably some quality recruitment. Along with, and this is key to a successful management team, is clear and measurable roles and responsibilities for them. So they know what they're supposed to be doing, you know what they're supposed to be doing, and more importantly, when a potential purchaser comes along, they know what that team is going to be doing, and that they can plug that team into their existing business, and your business, without you, will run smoothly. Also tied to a management team is having documented processes and systems in place. Because what will happen is a potential purchaser will come along and say, how does this work? How does that work? When this happens, how do you respond to it? What's the process for this? Now, from a sale point of view, a documented process and documented systems make it easier for the purchaser. Again, we talked initially about making it risk-free. But from your point of view, it means that you're not reliant on individuals for you're not reliant on individuals for specific things to happen. But what it also means is if you've got documented processes and systems, you can ensure consistency of delivery, whether it be a service or a product, because every single time you produce that product or offer that service, it will be done to the same quality every single time. If you really want to get involved or really want to understand documented processes and systems, I suggest you read the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, which is a brilliant explanation as to why you need systems and processes in place. And again, goes back to what we said before, it positions your business, or it creates a business that is just plug and play for a potential purchaser. Number 4, all contracts to hand. Now, when a purchaser buys your business, they need to limit their risk, and the main way of limiting their risk is making sure contracts are in place, and that might be client contracts, it might be supplier contracts, it might be leases and HP, it could be software, it could be property. It's all to do with, they hand over the money on a Friday, they want that business that they've purchased to continue running exactly the same on the Monday. If you've got, for example, a long-standing deal with your mate Dave down the road, but it's a verbal agreement, that has no value, or potentially has no value, to a potential purchaser, because Dave could just walk away next week and the value that the client thinks they've purchased no longer exists. And actually, one of the other things that's important about contracts, particularly at the moment, is staff contracts. Obviously, working processes have changed recently a lot. A lot of people now can work from home, maybe on flexi time, all those sorts of things. Now, if they're not in people's contracts and those contracts aren't up to date, what happens when the new business owner takes over on a Monday and says everybody's got to be in the office? If your employees or your previous or former employees haven't got that work from home in their contracts, it's going to cause problems. So make sure all contracts are A, up to date, and B, to hand. And also linked to that, my next point is all about passwords and logins. As your business grows and as you take on staff and use more and varied software and supplier systems, it's easy to lose control of passwords and logins. When the purchase of your business takes over, they're going to want to know, what's the password for that? What's the login for that? How do I access the bank account? How do I access the CRM system? All of these things, it's very easy to get what I'd call password and login creep as the business grows. Now, unless you've got all of that in one place, it's going to be really, really hard to collate that in time or when the client comes to purchase. I'll give you a very good example from when I sold my business. Again, as expected, the potential purchaser wanted passwords and logins. We didn't have a central base or a central file for all ours, and I had to create an excuse for my team that I'd read a security article over the weekend that we had to have all our passwords and logins in one place. So actually we did end up with a central log for everything, but it's very, very easy not to have one of those. And it's, I mentioned at the start, this is actually one of those things that's simply a good business habit. So make sure all your passwords and logins are all in the same place. And similar to that, up-to-date contact details, again, for things like suppliers and clients. Your purchaser is going to want to know the names and the contact details of, most importantly, all the clients, but also people like suppliers. It's a good housekeeping exercise, but at the moment, some of those contact details might be in your phone. They might be on the sales manager's laptop. They might be stuck on a piece of paper on a pinboard in the accounts department. So again, good business habit. get all your contact details up to date and keep them up to date on a regular basis. These sort of things, passwords and logins and contracts, what they will do is if you've got them all to hand, it will speed up due diligence from the purchaser, but also it gives the purchaser that peace of mind that you're a well-run business. And if you're a well-run business, that's going to reduce in their minds the risk in any purchase. Now the next point, I mean, those last two or three are very much sort of good business habits. The next point is very much specific to actually when you come around to selling your business, and that's understanding the market metrics and the valuations. So for example, if I was to offer you £1 million for your business, or £3 million, or £5 million, or £500,000, whatever the figure might be, that might sound like a really nice amount. Oh, great, I'm going to walk away with £1 million. But actually, do you know whether that is a good offer or not a good offer? The only way you're going to know whether that's a good offer is understanding the market values in your industry, and particularly your industry sector. In simple terms, you need to know what other businesses in similar size, similar age, similar profitability to yours have been sold for recently. I mean, take the example of buying and selling houses. How do you know the value of your property? Well, you'd normally have a look around your street or your area, see what other houses the same size as yours sold for. It's exactly the same with businesses. So the question then is, well, how do you actually find that information? Well, keep an eye on things like your trade press and online for numbers or at least multiples. Ask business brokers, ask accountants, lawyers, anybody who works in your sector. And the question isn't, what is my business worth? The question is, what are businesses being sold for? Now, be careful specifically with business brokers. Very similar to estate agents, they might inflate numbers to maybe get you on board if they want to sell your business. So understanding the market valuations is important, but understanding the metrics of how people get to those valuations is just as important. You know, most businesses will usually sell on a multiple of EBIT, earnings before interest and tax, or it might be EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. But other businesses are valued on multiples of annual profit. They're on averages of maybe 3 years profits or 3 years turnover. Sometimes it's a multiple of MRR, you know, monthly recurring revenue, and sometimes it's just a number of clients. So it might be X pounds times the number of clients. But whatever it is, you need to understand how the market values businesses, and that way you will understand what your business may or may not be worth. There's no guarantee of price, but it gives you a guidance as to the size of the offer that may or may not be coming your way. And tied to that, data and analysis. Now, it's very easy as a business owner to only analyze data that is commercially beneficial to you. So to understand what's going on in your business, what's going on in the market, how you compare, that type of thing. But actually, what you also need to do is to be able to analyze or have the analysis that the market usually requests when they're looking to buy or sell a business. And again, this is something we fell foul of. As a business, we had, as like most businesses, we had loads of data all over the place. But what we didn't have was it in an analysis form that the market used to analyze businesses. So what I had to do when we sold our business was I had to go backwards and put together analysis from raw data that we did have to be able to create analysis that our purchaser wanted to look at to review our business. So if early enough in your business journey you can find out the sort of analysis that people look for when they're buying a business, you may not need it, you may not use it, but the fact that you've got it and you're doing it on a regular basis is going to make sure you have that when it's actually required. Now this next one, chasing up old debtors, just goes back to good business habits, but it's also it's a great pointer in terms of being a risk-free purchase for a potential purchaser. if you're looking to sell your business and you've got old debtors on your book, oh, Dave always pays in 100 days, it's fine. Or you've got multiple clients who just run up debts and actually don't pay or pay very, very slowly. This is going to cause red flags for a potential purchaser. So you need to be chasing up those debtors on a regular basis. And again, as I say, it's just a standard good business habit. But if I'm a purchaser and I look at your balance sheet and there's loads of debtors on there, that's going to be a red flag. Now, it might be that you might actually have to write off some of those debts, because not having them on your figures is probably going to look better than actually having them as old debts, because the client is looking at your sales and looking at your work in progress and stuff like that. It's great to see what's been invoiced, but they want to see what turns up as cash. So make sure you chase up all those old debtors, and of course, keep up to date with things like corporation tax, PAYE, national insurance, pension payments, all those sorts of things. All of these things can either be red flags or green flags to a potential purchaser. The tidier your numbers are, the more likely the client is going to think, oh, this is a well-run business. There aren't going to be any skeletons in the cupboard. So simple things like chasing up old debtors is very, very important. And then tied to that is management accounts. Now, it's very easy, particularly when you start up as a small business, to avoid management accounts as an additional cost that you don't need. There are huge benefits in having management accounts on a regular basis, because it gives you a great view on what your business is doing very much now, rather than last year's accounts, which talk about maybe 18 months ago. It goes without saying that any potential purchaser, one of the first things they're going to ask for is your previous accounts and your management accounts. So inevitably you're going to be asked for them. And again, it's about red flags and green flags. If you haven't got management accounts, you're going to have to create them when you come to talk to sales, when you're talking about selling anyway. But actually, by not having them, does that point out to the potential purchaser that this business isn't well run, that you don't know what's going on? There's no great value to a potential purchaser of your accounts for 18 months ago, because they want to know what's happening now, what's happening right now, this week, this month, this quarter. So make sure you get into using management accounts and having them produced on a regular basis, as a habit. And these days, most people have got online accounting systems anyway, so it's pretty easy to pull off management accounts or weekly accounts or monthly accounts quite easily. So make sure you get into the habit of using those. Now, this is probably the dullest of all of the 12 points I'm covering here today. But have you got your statutory documents in place? Are your share certificates up to date? Are your board minutes up to date? If you've issued shares or sold shares or bought shares back, has the paperwork been done properly? Have you got a share option scheme? I mean, that's a minefield of legal problems if it's not done correctly. Now, all of the above statutory documents you might not need on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, but it gets you into really, really good habits to have those up to date, because as and when somebody comes knocking on your door looking to purchase your business, they will ask for them. So good business habits, get them in place as regularly or as soon as you can. And then finally, internal KPIs and projections. Firstly, a solid set of internal KPIs. If you've had these over ideally a number of years, it gives confidence to a potential purchaser and demonstrates that you have strong traction. You've been delivering against your key performance indicators on a regular basis, and that sort of thing is hard to argue against for a potential purchaser. This is real hard proof. Look at what we've been doing. Look at how well we've been doing. But on the flip side, it's all right saying we did well over these last months or years or whatever it might be. But a potential purchaser is also going to look at projections. So what do you think is going to happen in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it might be? You're actually giving them a roadmap, a playbook as to how to continue delivering the KPIs that you've done already. And again, we go back to the same thing. It's risk-free, it's easy to buy. If you've got historical data that shows how well you've done, and you've got clear and simple and logical projections as to what's going to happen in the future, it makes you easy to buy. It makes you not necessarily risk-free, but reduces your risk. And that's what we want in the end. We want to prepare to sell your business so it's actually sale ready before you even get on to selling it. So there we are. We've got 12 points as to how to prepare to sell your business. After you've watched this, if you've got any questions or any comments, please email me, phil@philfraser.co.uk. Happy to answer any questions you've got on this topic, and I hope you found it really useful. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.